Good evening. I'd like to call the regular City of Vacaville Parks and Recreation Commission meeting of November 2nd, 2022 to order and ask Ms. Secretary Foncia to please call roll.
Commissioner Oz.
Here.
Commissioner Berumen.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Here.
Commissioner McMahon.
Here.
Commissioner Shea.
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Present.
Chair Vasquez.
Here. And next, I'd like us all to stand and present the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So approval of the agenda. Everyone has had a chance to review the agenda. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? None? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Thompson, second by McMahon. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. The agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item 4, approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the October 5th meeting? Staff, are there any revisions? I did have 2, sorry, that I noticed later today. Those who are listed as present versus absent, it shows Thompson and Berumen still as present. It was, yeah, probably just a copy paste there. And then also you used acting. Yeah, you were absent, but you're listed as absent as well. And then you also just use acting and interim interchangeably for Director Hubbard's title as of last. I don't know if that's a big issue or not. Just wanted to. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Great, so motion by Berumen, second by Oz. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, Director Hubbard, do we have any communications for tonight?
None for tonight, Commission Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, where am I at? Moving on to agenda item 6, presentation. Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 7, which is business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda, but are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. There is a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Does anyone wish to address the commission regarding a topic that's not on the agenda? Please forward to the podium.
I don't even know if I'm in the right place. I hear that there's a new one being planned. I don't know who's on the planning commission, but I'm there every day. I know what they need. I know what needs to be changed for dogs. That's qualified. So can you help me? Can you help direct me?
Yeah, I think we can definitely have a city parks and rec staff person.
Yes, I'm going to have Nemo Gonzalez follow up with you. Is there a specific dog park that you're referring to as Centennial?
Well, the one on Browns Valley Road.
Okay, Centennial.
So there's, several dozen people go there every day, and the scuttle is that this is going to be moved. And they're all kind of concerned, like, what is it going to be replaced by?
Okay.
And so all of those details, it's really just, I would like to take information back to them because they're all worried that it's going to somehow go away and it won't be replaced.
Gotcha. I'll have our other park planner, who is our Centennial Park contact, Hugh Hesterman, right behind you, give you his card, and he can. Yes, he'll be in touch with you.
Thank you. Like from the public? Seeing none? I'll go ahead. Oh, okay. I was taking my time.
wanted to talk pickleball again real quickly. And I just wanted to make sure that you all had an invite, open invitation, Saturday, Sunday mornings. I think this Saturday, the weather is supposed to be decent. We usually play about 9 o'clock at North Orchard. And the weather's good and people will have extra paddles. They're willing to train just you or your family members or whatever. You're welcome to come out, say hi to the group, just come onto the court and just say that you're new, you haven't been there, and people will latch onto you, hand you a paddle, and be very gentle in teaching you the rules and the things. So really, just wanted to say that real quick. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are a socially distanced group. We even don't shake hands on court after a win to touch paddle. It's a great thing. I just came up to want to thank both the commission and the Park and Recs. We had a meeting with Elizabeth and Nemo. We and the tennis representatives were there. They listened. Well, let's see. They heard, I guess. I don't know if they listened. But they, with lots of great discussion back and forth, and we look forward just to continuing to build that both in the tennis group, the pickleball group, and the city. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for your comments tonight. We will move on to agenda item 8, reports of the Public Works Superintendent, David Jacobs.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. I just have one thing for the report tonight. We received a memorial bench request for Andrews Park. And so the slide on the left is a aerial view, see the Creek Walk Plaza. My cursor will, so this will be the Creek Walk Plaza and the playground there in the back. And then the red dot is where the location of the bench. And then the photo to the right is the playground in the background, and then that's where the applicant requested the bench to be installed. That's all I have for my report. And then just a reminder for communication, any requests for, whatever, things in the parks, that's the best way to notify us that something needs to be taken. All I have.
Any commissioner questions or comments for?
It's not regarding any of the Andrews Park, but what's going on with Dream Park? Or is being enclosed by chain link fences over there? That's over by Farmstead.
Dream Park? I'm not familiar with.
That's that new one over there by Fruitvale Orchard.
Yeah. So the developer has not turned over the park to the city.
Okay.
It is still in their possession. They haven't completed all the requirements in their basically development agreement. A certain number of houses have to be built. And so they were having some issues with people using the park, and some of the plant life and stuff was being trampled on. And so, we've had a couple meetings and just let them know we weren't going to be taking over the park until all the, basically all the landscaping was established. So they made the decision to go ahead and fence it in. So it's technically not a city maintained or owned park at this time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a comment. I actually brought it up at the last commission meeting, and you weren't in attendance, but just wanted to make sure that you heard this. In September, I went to a baseball tournament at Keating, and all of those beautiful new trees were installed in the back. But it was also during a baseball tournament, and there was like hundreds and hundreds of people in and out of the park all day long. With lots of teams, shuttling in from Vacaville out of town. And it was pretty distracting and also disruptive, I think. And I don't know if the tournament directors ever made contact with the city or not, but there was lots of trucks and trailers and the tractor backhoe thing, and took up a lot of parking in the back, but also just a lot of kind of extra chaos. If you've ever been to a baseball tournament, it's kind of crazy just in terms of parking and lots of families and kids everywhere. So just strongly encouraging communications between Public Works and Park and Rec when events like that are happening. I think a park that may be used during the weekend for a large, I just wanted to share with you.
Yep, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jacobson. If no other questions or comments. Let's see. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 9, we have 9A. Is there a 9B? Not 9B, but 9A. Discussion, feedback, and prioritization of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I'll go ahead and kick it off to Director Hubbard. Officially Director Hubbard, not acting anymore, so congratulations, Reggie. It's your first meeting as director. And I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you. I appreciate the congratulations. And for my first meeting, I'm excited, and I know the commission is excited as well to bring this particular item to the community. This was continued from our last meeting because we wanted the full commission to be on board. And as you're aware, the commission and the council approved the Park and Rec Master Plan in 2021, but it's a little over a year that we've been discussing projects and kind of going through the plan and letting it kind of settle in. And at this meeting, we want to take the action plan of the Park and Rec Master Plan and pull out those top projects and have the commission sort of rank those projects, at least have a discussion. We don't want to rush through this process, but we want to have a discussion about these projects and let you guys have an opportunity to have a say-so in what goes to the council moving forward. So Nemo's going to walk us through this process, and let's just have a lively discussion. So thank you. I'll hand it over to Nemo, our planner.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I wanted to latch on and maybe piggyback on what Director Hubbard just said, because it's not part of my presentation, but I just want to make it publicly known, and then you guys will understand sort of where we're coming from with this presentation. But the Park and Rec Master Plan, which was adopted by the City Council last year, does have a section for implementation for some of the projects that are listed in the Park and Rec Master Plan. And one of the segments that's part of the implementation chapter is actually a 5-year action plan. And so I want to preface my presentation by saying that just because one of the projects isn't ranked at the top of the list doesn't mean that the project goes away, but it will probably just fall for a little bit further down the totem pole in terms of implementation. But all of these projects exist in this document. They will stay there. We're just trying to get a sense of what to prioritize in terms of resources and whatnot. So with that, I'm going to start my presentation. Tonight, I'm going to be leading a discussion regarding the Park and Rec project priorities. Our objective tonight is to have a high-level discussion about the proposed projects, and at the end of the discussion, have the commission rank the projects in the order in which you would recommend the project proposals be activated. Once we reach the end of our discussion, I will turn it over to Tracy, and she will walk you through the ranking process. Staff's approach to this exercise was to rely on the nearly 10 years of community outreach conducted from 2011 to 2021 in preparation of 2 documents that help guide the city of Vacaville's evolving park and recreation needs. And these documents are the City of Vacaville Recreation Needs Assessment adopted in 2013 and the Park and Rec Master Plan adopted in 2021. There's a wide range of tools that were employed in the preparation of these documents, including workshops, interviews, and surveys. Staff went through this raw data and generated a list of park facility wants and needs. And the projects on this list were some of the most common overlapping responses for both of these documents. So the project list that was put together for your consideration tonight comes directly from the implementation chapter of the Park and Rec Master Plan. Most of come from a section called Action Plan, which I just discussed, which are identified as project priorities for the next 5 years. When developing project scopes for the Park and Rec Master Plan, some of the considerations taken by our consultants and worth discussing tonight are project budget, time frame, operational costs, staffing, trends, level of service, and recently completed projects. And if we need to elaborate on any of these terms, I'm happy to do so if you have any questions at the end of the presentation. Uh, The action plan section provides additional criteria that can be taken into account when choosing the projects to prioritize, including available funding and staffing, which I just discussed, generates revenue or reduces cost, advances diversity, equity, and inclusion, is a quick win, aligns with other projects, a limited time opportunity, and completes a phased project. Now, this slide is a project template slide, and it's intended to sort of help you navigate the project slides, which I'm about to start on. And so I'll walk you through it a little bit. Obviously, the project title will be the project, and then directly underneath there, you'll see detailed information regarding the scope of the project, so what that would entail. And then there's 3 other little segments at the bottom that talk about construction cost, maintenance cost, and then other interesting items or unique items regarding this one particular project that we happen to be looking at. Some of these are project specific. So if we're talking about a facility that exists, you'll see an image of that facility on the right. If it's something that's proposed that doesn't exist, there's just a generic photo for you to sort of not have to imagine what that would look like. And before we begin reviewing the project slides, I want the commission to know that if there is a project that is not on our list that you would like to add to the list, please do not hesitate to do so at the end of the presentation. It's not going to be something that we rank tonight, but it's a project that we can bring back in a subsequent meeting, and I can provide detailed information. And with that, I'm going to get started on the project list. So consistently among the highest ranked program features for residents of Vacaville over the last 10 years of outreach have been trails. We have 17.6 miles of trails in various Lagoon Valley open space and more within the Glen Eagle and Eligary open space that are unmapped and unnamed. The recently adopted DIF accounts for 7 miles to be built and funded with development fees. So one of the things to point out is that historically, City of Vacaville hasn't had a funding source dedicated to trails, but as part of the new DIF, that is a category that was added. So whenever there's a new development that occurs, a small portion of the park DIF actually goes to future trails and bikeways and whatnot. I just want to highlight too that the construction costs and the maintenance costs, we don't, some of the projects do have cost estimates in the Park and Rec Master Plan, but if there's anything that we know is that costs are always going up. In the last couple of years, in particular, inflation has been higher than usual. And so we always account for costs to go up, but how much they go up from year to year varies. And so we don't have current cost information. So what we did here is we put these 2 sort of categories for you so that you can compare one project versus the other. So these really just relate to the other projects in the presentation. So if it's got 1 shovel, that's probably one of the cheaper projects to construct or maintain. If it's got 5, that's a more expensive project. Also high on the list of Vacaville residents is a modern multipurpose recreation center. In 2019, a recreational facility assessment was conducted on a few of our aging facilities, including Three Oaks, Davis or Skate Center, and Georgie Duke. All of the existing sites have unique challenges, but repairs on any would severely hinder programming during renovations. So adding a more modern facility could provide some opening for future repairs on the existing facilities. This one in particular could potentially be located at Centennial Park. That's how it's identified in the Park and Rec Master Plan, but the location is TBD. In 2019, a pro forma was prepared for a sport complex located in the intersection of Lewis Road and Fry Road, adjacent to the wastewater plant. The consultant identified demand for the development of a new multi-field sports park in Vacaville and recommended one option above all others. Based on market and facility analysis, the preferred options include 8 natural turf fields, 4 synthetic fields, 2 sand volleyball courts, a field house and indoor courts, and a smaller practice linear field. And you'll notice that this one happens to be a lot more expensive than the trail project. Located at the eastern edge of Andrews Park, the Duke shares a parking lot with VUSD. I believe it's Buckingham School. The building was built in the 80s and houses training rooms, a boxing room, and a hard court surface gymnasium. Expansion is not an option for the gymnasium because the site is landlocked and couldn't accommodate more parking. But repairs could be made to the entry. There could be structural improvements, mechanical improvements, electrical, along with accessibility compliance. Located at 551 Davis Street off the I-80 and Davis Street recreation facility, also known as a skate center, is 92,000 square feet. It's a single-story facility that was built in the 50s and is home to ice hockey, basketball, volleyball, and gymnastics. When our lease ends in 2025, the city has rights of first refusal to purchase either our single pod or the entire facility should the owner of the facility be interested in selling. If the owners are interested in selling and the city is interested in purchasing the center, it would also need some repairs of equipment in order to be operational. The revised Alpatch master plan calls for the addition of multi-purpose field, added parking, play areas, basketball courts, skate park, dog park, and a walking loop, among other improvements. These improvements will likely be phased and have a potential to meet several community needs. Some of you will recognize this master plan. It came to a previous commission and is yet to go to City Council. The revised Nelson Park master plan calls for the addition of a mini ball field, added parking, splash pad, nature play, 3 designated pickleball courts, among other improvements. And similar to Alpatch, these improvements would be phased and have the potential to meet several community needs. Approximately 1/5 of the population of Vacaville is over the age of 60. And with this number projected to go up, the city wants to expand services available to this segment of the population. With the addition of a new senior center, a facility of approximately 30,000 square feet could allow for a commercial kitchen, dance studio, arts and crafts room, and a computer lab. And potential programming could include lunch distribution, fitness classes, and weekly bingo and cultural events. With the completion of Centennial Park Master Plan just around the corner, the Family Fun Zone is one phase of the project that could bring a multi-purpose central lawn, picnic shelters, restroom facilities, a splash pad to the heart of Centennial Park. And with the city's growing population and expansion of the existing Graham Aquatic Center pool to 50 meters, the addition of a shallow pool and other pool deck improvements would allow for the city to keep up with our level of service standard without having to maintain another facility. And these are the projects for your consideration tonight. Or you are welcome to suggest another project that is not on the list, and we can bring that to you in a future meeting. So this concludes my presentation, but I am here to answer any questions, Commissioner, or I apologize, Director Hubbard and Park Planner Hesterman, who worked on the Park and Rec Master Plan, are all here to answer any questions you may have. Chair Vasquez, I just wanted to remind you that once our conversation has concluded, if you could turn it over to Tracy, she can walk you through the ranking process.
I think I would like to start with public comments, if that's okay with the commission. So I'll go ahead and open this item for public comment. There's public. Like 3 minutes per speaker. And you'll see the little lights here.
tennis court?
There are tennis courts at Centennial, and there are plans to keep tennis
Put more?
courts as part of the master plan.
Is it on the plan to add more courts or no?
I don't believe so. But Hugh, can you answer that question?
So because I know the tennis, when we were working with tennis, they needed the more courts out there in order for them to have tournaments. So they were kind of like wanting to give up Three Oaks so we could have Three Oaks so they could do Centennial. But if there wasn't enough courts, they're not gonna be able to. So I was just wondering how many courts are in the work?
As it
Four?
turns out, and I'm going to report on this later, Hugh's actually holding a meeting for the Centennial Park Master Plan in December, and you can attend that and have a discussion regarding the number of tennis courts that are going to be accounted for in the revised master plan.
Thank you.
I think it was the slide was the Al Patch Park, and you said 3 designated pickleball courts.
Nelson.
Oh, the Nelson. And so that's not lines on a tennis court or anything like that. That's, okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment and open it up for commissioners' questions and comments. Who wants to kick us off? All right, Commissioner McMahon?
Thank you, Chair. Nemo, I have a question on the slides here. I noticed that only 2 of the slides indicate Measure M funds. Are those 2 only eligible for that, or can you explain that?
So we purposely left out any discussion regarding funding for the projects because we wanted to prioritize a discussion regarding programming and needs. The master plans that have the Measure M, I think it's because the master plan effort was funded by Measure M, but I could be wrong. Reggie, can you answer that question?
No, the master plan wasn't funded by Measure M. I think in going through this process, our projects were talked about when we were going through the Measure M process. So there was talk about putting Measure M funds into these particular projects. But any project that we have and that you guys move forward with, there'll be a combination of funds going towards those projects. It could be Measure M, it could be DIF, it could be grant funded. So that's for us to figure out at some point once you guys prioritize the projects. So, but there'll be, I'm sure, all of these projects will have several different funding sources.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Shea?
Thank you for the presentation. I know this took a lot of work on all of staff's behalf. I was wondering, I just like a little bit more clarification about how we came to the list that we have now. And I know that you combined the needs assessment and the Parks and Rec master plan and kind of, pick the ones that are hitting all the check boxes, right? Hitting all the buckets. But within that list that was pulled, was there any effort given to, having a range of projects? It seems like all of these are kind of big projects, right? And I know that there are parks within Vacaville that are existing that definitely could use some updating, and, more features and just all of that stuff. So how do we end up with all big projects versus just improving some smaller ones? Does that make sense?
It does. And so we have multiple efforts going on. So one of the first priorities that we had for Measure M projects, for instance, was to have district improvement projects, and all of those are happening concurrently as we speak. And those are considered smaller scaled projects that require less funding, whereas these are larger projects. And like I mentioned in the presentation, I want to say there might be one project that isn't in the action plan segment, but every other project is actually listed in the action plan that is supposed to be addressed within the next 5 years. And the chapter actually indicates that we're supposed to come back to the commission on an annual basis and sort of review this list with you. And so I tapered the list down by looking at myself and other staff, we looked at the outreach that was conducted for the documents, which the intent of the document is to guide sort of our investment. And so that's how we develop the list. It's really just plucking the projects directly from the Park and Rec Master Plan for the action plan, which is supposed to be addressed within the next 5 years. And I think it's even got a range of 2021 through 2026. And so, yeah, I'm not really addressing the smaller park aspect of your question, but there is concurrent efforts to sort of address some of the other needs in other parks.
By smaller parks and smaller projects, do you mean just like smaller updates? So like in the master plan, in chapter 6, like it had, pretty extensive list. And I know we can't look at all of that, but I was just wondering, like within those, are those separate from the smaller projects you're talking about right now? Like those parks and like the proposed improvements to those parks?
Sure. It's been a couple of weeks since I gave you guys an update, so I'll elaborate a little bit. But we've got improvement projects going on at Sierra Vista Park, Trower Park, Meadowlands, Pheasant Country, Corderos. All of those have smaller scale projects that are going to come online. In fact, 3 of those projects are at 100% construction documents, and we should be turning them over to Public Works to bid within the next few months. So you'll see some smaller improvements that are listed in the Park and Rec Master Plan come online soon.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's all my questions for now, but I'm also quite sure that I'll have more
Sure.
as we go through the discussion.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back around. Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you. Nemo, thank you for putting this all together. I'm sure you took a lot of time on this. I understand why you left funding off of there because it's a fairly convoluted, difficult discussion. But one of the things I would have liked to have seen, and it is on your prioritization criteria, is the ability to generate revenue and kind of, return on investment. So I personally like large projects that pay for themselves. And then once they've paid for themselves with a return on investment, they actually generate additional funds back into the Parks and Recreation budget for some of these other projects. As my fellow commissioners are talking about the smaller updates or whatever. So that it perpetuates itself throughout, continuum. And so I would have liked to have seen something that, I love your shovel, you 1 through 5. How much potential is there? And maybe that's a difficult to narrow down, but how much potential is there for generating revenue and return on investment for some of these projects?
Sure. One of the reasons that we, omitted some of the information is because we don't have equal information for all of the projects. For instance, of the 10 projects, only one of the projects that I listed has information regarding return on investment, and that is the sports complex. And the reason that that's the one project is we did a pro forma. We hired a consultant to do that level of analysis. To make this general of a presentation, it's difficult when we don't have equal information to sort of convey that. If, for instance, I shared that information, that would have been the only project that I could have shared because that's the only project that we have data on. It's also 3 years old. So from a decision standpoint, it's difficult to sort of, the other thing is that particular pro forma has various options with various different configurations and lots of other data to consider. And I just can't anticipate what you as commissioners will prioritize. So it's difficult for me to choose what information, but we're hoping that this is an iterative process where you make a request, an explicit request, and then I can look into that information. And unfortunately, that's not going to change the fact that we only have one study. But we can make strides to try to get some of that information. And it might be, requesting other consultants come online and prepare further studies. That might be an outcome of tonight.
For your next question, can you just provide a brief explanation of what a pro forma is?
Essentially, it's just an analysis to see whether that particular item is needed or not, and what circumstances would need to happen in order to see whether there could, for instance, be a return of investment, right? So one of the reasons that the option that was recommended by the consultant was actually recommended is the fact that that was the only one that was revenue positive or neutral. All of the other configurations were not, which means that they would require additional funding, supplemental funding by the general fund or other funding sources.
I certainly don't want to suggest that we go and hire consultants and spend a bunch of money for every one of these projects, but it would be helpful to have some kind of assessment. And I completely respect where you're coming from. You can't compare apples to oranges. We only have one that had a consultant do a pro forma, and it's what I think 3 years old, at least that. And I think things have changed. If that consultant were to come back today, I think they would probably make different recommendations, in my view. But if there's a way to, I guess I would ask if there's a way to put some kind of valuation on return on investment without spending, consultant fees, that would be beneficial information.
Sure.
Commissioner Oz.
Thank you, Nemo, for your presentation and your work as always. Yeah, just to echo Commissioner Thompson's comments, I think it's really important to understand, you use the term perform, I would use the term cost recovery. I mean, is it going to, are the operation and maintenance costs going to exceed what's generated by the local revenue? So I would think some of those, like the senior center, I would think you should be able to take our existing senior centers and be able to just use that as a proxy, so I don't, you're the expert, but I don't know if it necessarily needs to be, hire consultants. I'm a consultant myself, but, you don't have to always hire consultants to do that type of an effort, but any type of just general information on some of our existing facilities and the cost recovery would be interesting as well, because Commissioner Thompson makes a very good point that's a big decision point, whether to go forward with some of these other projects.
Sure.
On the Davis Street Gymnasium acquisition, so that's a big unknown. So my understanding is that the leaseholder has got 3 more years. Has there been any discussions with the leaseholder about I guess the 2 big questions would be, are they interested in potentially selling it back to the city? And if not, what are their plans for renovation and modernization of the facility?
Yeah, just so there has been discussions, but not recently, is my understanding. If there is recent conversations that are occurring, I was not included in those conversations. But my understanding is that it's even slightly more complicated of an issue, because when the contract came about, it was with the redevelopment agency with the city. When that got dissolved, that contract moved over to the county, but we are essentially the ones that are footing the bill to rent out the facility. And so there are steps that need to be taken to sort of move that sort of back into the city's sphere of influence to be able to make that sort of decision. And that hasn't occurred, is my understanding. And so one of the things for you guys to consider, and this is where I'm, again, I'm getting into the weeds, and it's something that I can elaborate on a future meeting if we bring this project back, is the programming that occurs at Davis Street is fairly popular, and I believe it's a revenue positive. And so in the scenario that particular owner doesn't renew our lease, what happens to all that programming? So there is, that should be weighed for you. And unfortunately, I don't have a ton of answers, because my involvement in that has been fairly limited. Yeah. Director Hubbard, do you have any other insight?
Yeah, no, if I can just add to that, your specific question about any talkings or dealings with this particular owner on either selling the property to the city, or there has not been any discussions about that recently. As Nemo suggested, there were years ago, and they didn't hedge one way or the other, if they wanted to sell the property to the city or to someone else. There has been rumors, of course, which, who believes rumors, but they're out there, that they were going to sell to someone else and do something else with that property. That hasn't come up for some time now. We've been kicking this can down the road for a while, and as far as making a decision on if we want to buy the pod or, once it's available to purchase. So, but I think time is of the essence, because in 2025, we have to make a decision on what to do with that property. And we can't move the program because, of course, gymnastics is very specialized. It's a specialized program with specialized equipment. And so we need to that needs to go into the decision-making process of, what do we do with that facility in 2 years? Now, we can continue to lease and just it stays neutral and continue to pay our rent in that facility after that. But I think it's going to lie on the property owner and what they want to do. Do they want to sell it or continue to lease, with us? But we need to start having those conversations here pretty soon.
And just to elaborate a little bit, I believe it was last commission meeting, there was a member of the public that came and spoke on the surface of the condition of the floor at the skate center. That's the same facility.
I guess my last question is, looking at this, at the whole list with the sports field complex and then all the additional fields and courts at El Patch and Nelson, are all of those fields and courts needed to get to our level of service, or do we need to accomplish all of these to get to that level, or is there a little bit of overkill? So if we do the sports field complex, might you not do some of the fields and courts at El Patch or Nielsen?
Yeah, that's a great question. Linear fields are something that we're not meeting our level of service standard on, but what the number of exact fields that we need is not something that I know off the top of my head, and I can bring that back to you. I will say that, one of the things that we had sort of considered is that you wouldn't fund all phases of all of the master plans that are proposed. And so it could be that you choose to fund one portion of Centennial or one portion of El Patch or Nelson that does not include the field.
So through phasing, you could do all three of those projects, but phase in and make sure that you're phasing in different aspects or different fields and courts so that you're timing those well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
There's data in the 2013 rec needs assessment about where we were currently deficient. But it's 2013, it's pretty outdated, and it projected out to 2030. And for, what did you say? Football, soccer fields at the time, it's a 2.9 currently deficient facilities. And then for baseball and softball, it says 0, but for Vice Chair Thompson and I would disagree with that.
That concludes all my questions at this point.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Okay. I have a few. I made a few notes throughout the presentation, and thank you for simplifying everything. The pictures, the shovels, it made it a lot easier. So for the trail, I know there wasn't a lot of details, and we do plan on it being pretty low cost, but I just wanted to make sure in those costs, are we looking at lighting? I know just around Vacaville period, that's been an issue or a suggestion or recommendation. Are we looking at installing better lighting around these trails?
So the scopes that are listed in the Park and Rec Master Plan for open space and trail are pretty limited. One of the things that was listed was just a study to sort of analyze where we are and the distribution of trails, where we need to be. And one of the things that does sort of come along with that is trailheads. So where you would sort of access a trail in an open space. And so I could see, if we added a parking lot or a restroom facility, that there would be a need for lighting. But trails in particular don't typically have anything beyond signage, perhaps some paving. I can't see a trail that isn't sort of a loop in an existing neighborhood or community park have any sort of lighting. Does that answer your question, or?
No, it does.
Okay.
It does. And then for the new multipurpose rec center, That was one of the places that a location hasn't been defined just yet, right?
That's correct. I believe in the Park and Rec Master Plan, it does say that one potential location that we can locate that, and it is included in the Centennial Master Plan is Centennial Park.
Okay, any thoughts about possibly having a multi-purpose rec center on the 8-7 side? I know we do have the 3 Oaks, but there's other areas of like District 3 that are on the 8-7 side, like near Aegean Way, Shasta, Berryessa, that area where there really aren't any like indoor basketball centers. I think all the indoor basketball, places are on the 8-8 side right now, Davis and Georgie Duke.
Right.
But there are no locations for, and I don't know if this rec center would have that, have an indoor basketball, but it seems to be, I live on that side in District 2, that there is a need on that side to have a place for teenagers to go for certain events instead of having to always go to the other side of town.
Sure. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for other potential districts where it could be located because we just haven't had those discussions. I would like to point out that at Patch, the proposed basketball courts actually do have a shade structure over them. So I just wanted to highlight that. So that's the orange in the plan that you see there. So they would be covered. But what I'm doing is I'm adding to my list that we should perhaps map the facilities that we have and try to figure out whether a better distribution is something that we should consider.
Yeah, I'm thinking also if for some reason the Davis Street gym does go away, then we would be limited as far as indoor facilities just to one.
Right.
Which brings me to my next question. So if for some reason the owner does not sell to us, are we able to still make some improvements to that gym?
Yeah, we have had some discussions, and I'll turn it over to Director Hubbard to elaborate.
Yes, we are allowed to make improvements to that gym. And one of the things we were waiting to make improvements, that's one of the reasons the flooring, the guy came last meeting to talk about the flooring, because we didn't want to spend, $100,000, $150,000, put a new floor in, and then we weren't able to extend our stay in that particular facility. So that's really has been the reason we've been waiting to spend any, real money. Now, we're upgrading some parallel bars and our spring floor, but those things can be taken out and moved to another facility. A floor, you really can't move a gym floor. So that's one of the reasons we haven't been able to really spend money in that particular facility. But like I said, that decision is going to have to be made here pretty soon.
Okay. There's no working shot clock there either, and we can take that.
Now, that's something we can do.
Yeah.
That's something we can do like
that. And then my other suggestion about a new senior center, and I don't know, I know we had talked about some type of activities for Green Tree, but I'm just thinking as far as housing, and there is a lot of senior housing, like especially in District 2 where I live. So it would be nice if we can look at that side of Vacaville for a new senior center. And one other question I had, I don't know if this is another project suggestion or just a question in general. Have we talked about any type of upgrades to Beelert Park?
So I know that the play equipment is going to be replaced at Beelert because I did assist with that effort. David, I think he's gone now, but he's managing that project. And I worked with a vendor to get updated equipment, including adaptive equipment for that park. So that is happening next year.
Okay.
It was supposed to happen this year, but just working with the vendor, it took a little bit longer. I think we combined efforts to, he had a maintenance project to replace that equipment, and then we were trying to provide more sort of inclusive and adaptive equipment. And so that we had to go back to the drawing board, and so that prolonged the process. But that's my only understanding of what's occurring at Beelert in the next year.
Okay. All right. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I noted that back in 2021 when we were looking at this original list that also Payton's not on the action plan, and I think Payton Park also needs a lot of work. I'm going to move on. I'm gonna skip you, sorry, Vice Chair Thompson, and move on to Commissioner Berman. He hasn't spoke yet.
No, thank you. Just go off Commissioner Gutierrez, who was talking about the 8-7 side. What's that park that's sitting off of Elmira right before you get to Leisure Town? That was sitting right there in that little corner right there, a couple of basketball courts.
Oh,
My
Pheasant.
geography is terrible here, but
Yeah,
Pheasant.
Pheasant.
I think it's on the list.
is it? In Spider-Man Park? Is it Pleasant Valley?
Is it Patwin Park?
Oh, Patwin.
Yeah. Okay. And then regarding George Duke, I know I kind of grew up on that. That's how old that facility is. That's pretty old. But at the same time, how does it work with Buckingham? Because I see a lot of action from Buckingham using that facility. Is it revenue coming out of that, or is it?
I can turn that over to Director Hubbard.
Yes, we did work with the school district. Elizabeth actually worked with Buckingham for them to use our gym for their gym classes and other activities. And yes, they did. We did receive quite a bit of revenue from that particular during that time. I think they have their own now, but yes, we
Okay.
did.
Perfect. That's pretty much it for now. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions too, before I move on to other commissioners. Let me see. The Trailhead Improvement Project, is that envisioned just to be in Lagoon Valley, or is there more envisioning to happen? But I think it sounds like, at least that's how you presented it, and even in the Park Master Plan, mostly focused on Lagoon Valley.
Yeah, so I apologize if I didn't articulate this correctly. What I was trying to get at was most of the existing designated trails that we have are located at that Lagoon Valley open space, but we do have plans for formalizing some trails at Caligari and Glen Eagle. So in that part of town. We're sort of restricted to wherever we've got open space as a city, and those are the two other locations where we have some.
On going back to the Davis Street gym, the pod, does that mean something, POD?
Yeah, so the pod essentially, so funny enough, I haven't been there myself, so I physically don't know what it looks like, but
Well, it's obviously the section that the city uses. and
correct.
Minus the ice skating side, but does POD stand for something?
Yeah, no.
Oh, you guys just call it the pod.
Yeah, essentially it's a segment. So
Got
there's
it.
three
Internal.
segments and one of them is being occupied by the city to run their programming.
Okay. I mean, I have just general thoughts. It sounds like we need to start conversations sooner than 2025. If it is going to potentially expire and we would potentially lose a space for all of that programming. I mean, I'd like to think if we were in that situation that maybe VUSD would, send some reciprocity and maybe we could, that beautiful new gym at Vaca High is open. And Buckingham's, but if we were to lose programming, I mean, I feel like that would be super damaging. So, and would probably take years to recover from. So I feel like we would need to know sooner rather than later.
Yeah, if I can comment on that, and I would have to look at the agreement, take a peek a little closer at the agreement. I think if they sell it, I mean, we'd have first right of refusal to buy at least our pods. I don't think we'd get kicked out, but they could sell the other two pods. I think we would still be able to program and be in our pod, but I think long-term, we would like to consider the other pods as well, or one of the other pods. But we'd have to take a closer look at the agreement to see what our options are at the end of the term of the agreement. But I don't think they would sell and we would have to be out of the pod, if I'm not mistaken. Is this an option for us to buy and to purchase? Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of questions around that facility to consider potentially committing to a project in there. Let me see, I had another question. On the new senior center, you said approximately 30,000 square feet. What's the square footage of McBride? And I'm sure I could find it. I have my park master plan here, but I don't have a control F in front of me to find it.
I don't know that off the top of my head. Does anybody else?
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess just wanted to know like how it compares to the current facility. I'll keep scrambling then and looking through. my packet. Okay, so those were some of my initial questions. I'm gonna move on to, Vice Chair Thompson.
So my, the same comments as everyone else's, are really more directed at Director Hubbard, and I apologize for putting you in the hot seat. But this Davis Street complex seems like a critical decision point because, and I appreciate your comments about, we won't lose access to it, but the potential to purchase it and use programming at other pods or other segments of the property would alleviate some of the other projects possibly. So, I mean, it becomes a major decision point of if the city decides to purchase or continue to rent, or if it's sold to a completely separate entity and we have limited access to it. Because, as I mentioned, purchase could solve some problems,
Right.
not all the problems, but some of these priority projects.
No, that's a great point. And you're right. If we were able to purchase and take over one of the other pods, then we could, add a gymnasium in one of the pods. There's enough room to do that. So, and we've talked about that. So you're right. That decision needs to happen, as Commissioner Chair said, or sooner than later. And it may drive sort of your decision on how you want to rank these at some point, but
And that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It really does drive some of these prioritization decisions. And then that just comes around full circle to my original comments about return on investment. Something like that, if we were to purchase additional pods or the entire complex, programming there would generate revenue. And also, as Nemo mentioned, building in phased approaches where you might do a complex or something at Centennial or something at Alpatch and do other things later. That allows for programming to also generate revenue and pay for future phases, phase 3, 4, 5, et cetera. So I like that concept. I'm just always trying to, funding is a major issue, right? I'm always trying to get things to pay for themselves, not only now, but also in perpetuity.
oh, and if I can circle back to Commission
sure.
Chairs, McBride is 8,200 square feet, 8,200 square feet of flexible functioning space. So I don't know if that's the entire building, because I don't know if that includes the office space. So I think that just includes like the dining hall and those areas that are open to the public. Yeah.
It's a third, yeah, potentially, even if you incorporated that space, potentially only a third of it. Okay, thank you. I was trying in my paper documents over here. Let's see, moving on to Commissioner Shea.
Okay, thank you. So I had a few, mine are very scattered. First, I wanted to ask, I saw splash pads on a couple of these. I know that splash pads were recently cited at one of the other park improvements as being too costly and inefficient. So I was just wondering the reasoning behind having it included in some of these proposed projects. Has that changed? Is there, a more efficient way to do them than was just, discussed at the Trower Park project? Why is it okay for these projects and not
Sure.
that one, right?
That's a great question. So in what it comes down to is a classification of the park. So Trower is a neighborhood park, and so it's intended to serve residents within a half-a-mile radius, whereas community parks are intended to serve a wider sort of range of folks. And so, oftentimes when you see program elements that include water or whatnot, there's restrooms and other facilities that come along with those. And so community parks are more appropriate spaces for those particular types of uses versus neighborhood parks. So neighborhood parks, again, we typically, our guidelines don't indicate that we should be providing restroom facilities at those types of parks, because theoretically, the people that are visiting the park live within a walking distance.
Okay. And then, so we've just really batted Davis Street back and forth, so I'm not going to really ask anything else about that. We're kind of at an impasse, right? I did want to know too, so the expansions or the additions at Walter Graham, are those additions, I saw that there, is going to be a shallow pool, the pools that are already there going to be bigger, bigger pool deck? Will any of the additions include like an indoor pool or something that will extend the season or the usage period of Walter Graham? Because I know it closes, and during that time, it's not generating
Yeah,
any revenue.
if my recollection serves me right, I don't think that there's anything listed in the scope in the Park and Rec Master Plan for enclosing the pool, just extending the existing facilities.
So it essentially probably have the similar like open season then? Okay,
Correct.
okay.
If I can clarify, our aquatics program, it does go year round. We have water aerobics in the winter time, in the fall and winter as well, and lap swim.
So I'm just thinking of like open swim then, right? That's the one that like
Yes.
closes seasonally?
Right.
Okay.
I actually thought I did see it somewhere, when I was reviewing information earlier, that, I don't know if it was in the Rex need assessment or the Parks Master Plan, about indoor and Walter Graham. I don't know if there's a way for us to check that quickly. I can't, again, if I had my Control F, I'd probably be able to find it a little bit faster, but I'm pretty sure I saw it somewhere. And I thought in association with Walter Graham. But I think on that same note, I mean, I feel like growing up, I don't remember the club out in Browns Valley, they used to have like a thing that they would put over the pool to sort of make it feel indoors and maybe shield some of the cold air. Has that ever been a consideration for Walter Graham to somewhat enclose it?
We haven't talked about that. I know what you're referring to, it's almost like a bubble, over that. We haven't considered that, but we did consider what they call a natatorium, which is a big aquatic center that's enclosed through the Measure M discussions. But that's really expensive. I mean, we were talking, $50-60 million to build that from the ground up. And that's why we settled on what the Park and Rec Master Plan said is expanding the Graham Center versus erecting a whole new aquatics facility that's indoor. But we have had informal discussions about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cold on that side of town. And the pools are not heated, correct?
Our pools are heated. Yes.
They are heated?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
They're still even cold in the summer. Probably when they're not heated and it's really windy over on that side of town. Okay, Commissioner Shea.
I also just wanted some clarification on, so I know that one of our guest speakers this evening asked about tennis courts at Centennial. And so those are just being, and then another gentleman asked about like things being moved at Centennial. So throughout that project, is it the existing features or those things that are going to be moved to other parts to accommodate these potential additions or improvements or phases?
So I'm going to turn it over to our other park planner, Hugh Hesterman, who's managing that project.
Okay. You're up, Hugh.
Good evening. I tried to follow your question and I would like you to repeat it, please.
So a couple people asked about existing features or amenities at Centennial potentially being moved. Is that due to these proposed projects? Is that just in the course of like building out these phases at Centennial? Are the tennis courts going to be moved? Is the dog park going to be moved to accommodate these other things?
So generally, yes, the answer, but each one of those needs a clarification. The big problem with the tennis courts at Centennial over the years, and the reason the pickleball club doesn't want to play there and the tennis folks don't like playing there is the wind. The wind at Centennial is bad from the north and from the southwest. It just depends upon the day which way it's coming from. So the question that we're trying to resolve there, is there a place on the Centennial property where we could build new tennis courts that were protected from the wind, not just with, the wind screens that you attach, because that's not enough. And we think there is, and that's down in the hollow, sort of in the south center location. and it's pretty well shielded there from the south wind, definitely. And if we were to build a rec center there and add some additional north blockage, some trees and that sort of thing to help prevent the north wind. So that particular site seems very good for solving the wind problem with the tennis courts. The Family Fun Center is located right on top of where we built our interim dog park, knowing that someday we would like to put the Family Fun Center there, and where the dog park, we would like to locate the dog park is over where they're right next to the old landfill, where they took the soil, and there's a big hollow, looks like a bomb crater there. And they took that soil and put it on top of the landfill. And so we have some ideas on how to do that very economically. But you can't build two things in the same location. So one thing has to move first. And then the United Soccer League's Field E, same situation there. That would have to be relocated too. So I don't know if I covered the specific things you were asking about, but everything needs to be phased in a proper order.
Yeah, so, and that answered my question mostly. So it does kind of hinge on how we prioritize tonight though too. Both of those like movements is really part of another phase. It's not
Right.
definitely decided upon yet.
Right. But we do have some schemes in mind for how to fund some of those things to make movement on that without having to wait for lots of money to do one item.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Hugh, I have a follow-up question to that. So the family fun zone is where the current dog parks are?
Yes.
And you said something about Field E at the soccer, it would take over that too?
Yep.
So then what happens to the soccer complex?
So on
Do they
in the Centennial
essentially
Park
lose-
Master Plan, there shows a much larger field on the other side, on the east side. And so the intention is to build that. Actually, VYSL did a very nice master plan in 2000. Oh boy, I forgot what year that was, 2010, I think, that actually shows them moving their primary entrance over to the east side. And that would be a great location for having a restroom and your core area with equal distribution and a new parking lot specifically. I mean, to be shared, but specifically to serve that. So you'd have better access. Right now, there's not very good access into the soccer field, into the soccer complex.
Yeah, I'm there every Saturday. Which is why I'm raising this concern too, is the E field is the new field that they literally just built and opened this year.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the one behind the dog park?
Yes.
To the right of the
right
dog.
of the
Yeah.
dog
Yeah,
park.
okay.
Yeah.
They just opened that,
Yeah.
which is amazing. It has been great.
Yeah.
They're running tons of games all at one time.
Yeah.
The parking is a mess.
Yeah.
It is a mess. It is
Yep.
chaos. I saw Mel there one weekend, and she's probably there every Saturday too, and can attest to this too. It is crazy.
They were required with that field to add some interim, again, the word interim parking. So they added I think 100 cars, as I recall, out of gravel. So it's recycled pavement grindings, basically is what it is. But there's days when you go out there and there's games at both soccer complex and the ball fields, and every parking space is used up.
Yeah.
So
totally.
that's a big issue. Yeah.
And so even in thinking about moving the dog park, potentially moving the tennis fields, I mean, it's just going to continue to impact parking. Like as of right now, the tennis fields are kind of up over on that top perch area, like the lemon lot area. That's what I refer to, the lemon lot.
Lemon lot?
Lemon lot, where everybody parks their cars there to sell their cars and face it out to round the lemon lot. And so parking of, tennis doesn't really impact the soccer and baseball situation, but you start moving things around and it definitely will. I mean, I've had to park all the way on the other side of the Centennial Fields and just walk through because it's not that big of a deal to walk through. But it's really bad. I mean, people are parking next to the boulders on the hill. So, I mean, I think I'm going to attend that December Centennial meeting because I think it just has to be rethought.
If you take a look at the draft Centennial Master Plan, it shows quite an additional, quite a few more parking lots and more distribution. So they're better location. Like there'll be one that's specific to the dog park, for example, one that's specific for the soccer complex, one that's specific more for the rec center and all those sorts of things. But that's not to say that you have to park there. So if there's an overflow in one area, you may have to park somewhere else and walk
Yeah.
that distance. But overall, there'll be substantial increase in the number of parking spaces.
Yeah. I mean,
And
people
actually,
are-
we had to really fight. The city has a policy of not doing interim parking. So we had to actually go to bat for VYSL to allow them to put it in that fifth field with temporary parking.
Yeah, I don't know where the temporary parking is, because it
It's
looks like
it's in
people are
that,
just parking everywhere.
it's in the large gravel area. It's been expanded by quite a
Okay.
bit.
I'll have to pay better attention next time I go, but people are really brave. I mean, they're taking curbs and parking next to these huge boulders that
That's not good.
I don't know how they do it. But this is helpful and interesting to know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you have more questions?
No, well, more of a comment, or I don't know if this is an appropriate time to bring some things to be considered in the near future. But I just, in looking at all of these big projects and to kind of speak to Commissioner Thompson's point of, being able to fund out the smaller improvements and the park stuff, I do like to see a balance. And I think that there are some community parks that just need love pretty quickly. Other commissioners already brought these up, but I think it's because they're glaringly in need. And I would like to see Beelard Park and Southwood as well brought. I know that there was some improvements talked about for Southwood, but I don't know if that was just in the master plan or if that was like being discussed as coming up in the near future outside of what we're talking about tonight. And then Payden as well. And specifically at Payden, the walking path is really dangerous. There's huge potholes. I know 3 people whose kids have been injured in some way, shape, or form. My friend's daughter had to go to the emergency room and get stitches in her lip because she went right over her little scooter and the potholes on the walking trail at Payden. Those parks, I feel like, are pretty glaringly in need. And would definitely like to see those come, before the council, and if not tonight, soon-ish, right? Because these are all beautiful projects, and I'm really excited about a lot of them, but like, I also don't want to see a situation in Vacaville where we have, these jewels in certain parts of town, and then you go to other parts of town and it's like, wow, that park is really sad, and it's not beautiful, and we want all of Vacaville to be a jewel, so, though, yeah, for everyone in every area, and be proud of all of our town. So those ones specifically, I think. And then I think that's it for questions. Again, for now.
Commissioner McMahon, you had your hand up for a really long time, and I apologize.
I did, and I feel like I'm just going to be repeating a lot of the same questions and comments. It's really concerning, and I'm going to go back to Davis Street, to make a decision or to prioritize something that we don't know that's going to possibly take place in 2025, over 3 years from now. So that would influence what I think is important tonight, when we're prioritizing these different projects, because the Davis Street gym is relatively close to Georgie Duke. So if we were able to purchase this property, I think that we can make this beautiful gym right down the street that is fairly centrally located in Vacaville. What is the city interested in purchasing that property? If there's an option to?
I think if it came down to it, the city manager or the council would ask the Parks and Rec Department, are we interested in purchasing that property? And I would say we would be interested in purchasing that property because we could expand programming, right? We buy one of the pods or all of the pods, or even keep our own. We can continue to program there, but we can expand what we're currently doing. And like you said, we can check off some of the boxes in some of the Park and Rec master plan areas with regard to expanding, gymnasium space, volleyball space, et cetera.
Right.
So I would say yes, but I would say yes with an asterisk, only because, and you guys are aware of this, the gym leaks, the roof is not great, right? And so there's some other issues related to that gym. And Nemo has done some homework on what it would cost to sort of do some upgrades to that gym and get the roof repaired and things like that. So I would say, yes, we would be interested. And like I said, sound like a broken record that we need to make that decision sooner than later. But there's an asterisk there to, what do we want to invest in a facility that was, what, 1954, I think he said, when it was erected, somewhere around there, Nemo?
Putting me on the spot, Director.
Well, somewhere around there, that desperately needs a new roof, all right, and needs other repairs. And so we'd have to take a look at that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And also, I think it's fair to say all of our parks throughout the town, our community and our citizens all deserve a park, and that goes throughout the town, whether you live on the south side, the north side, the central side, wherever it is. So all of our parks do need attention. I live up on the north side, and I will say this, we are completely underserved. We don't have enough parks there. If you look at the maps, North Vacaville is completely underserved. So, I would fight for that. I want more parks there, and I want our parks maintained just the same as anybody else. And we owe that to the citizens of Vacaville. So I will end with that. Thank you.
Any more hands up, but I have one more question. I think more so about Vice Chair Thompson's concept of return of investment on a new multi-use sports complex. Like, is that something that could actually be done? Like, if and when a sports complex is built, can funds be allocated and redirected specifically back to field maintenance, park maintenance? You guys are shaking their heads.
Well, when you build something like that, just like our programs run today, if it's aquatic facility, it's going to go back to the aquatics program, right? I mean, the money that we make in aquatics, our youth sports, it goes back to the sports program to pay for uniforms and things like that. It's tough to ask someone to pay for a program but the revenue goes to another facility or program. The thing with return on investment, and this is why we wanted to sort of stay away from like the budget and the cost and return on investment, because we didn't want that to be the driving force. And Nemo did lead with that, only because the projects that you guys have in front of you are the ones that, one, crossed over from the Park and Rec Master Plan and the needs assessment. And that's all input from the residents. So we wanted just what the residents have told us over the last several years, what they thought were priorities for the city of Vacaville. If you once you throw money out there, you guys go, well, that costs too much. We don't want to do that. And that's going to take too long. So we wanted it just to be kind of let's remove that barrier. And what do you guys think, about these projects, regardless of like return on investment? Because there's no return on investment on like trails, right? With the exception of good health and things like that, those things that are not too tangible, but other things you can. And so it's not going to be apples to apples, and that'll be tough for us to do. We'd have to have a consultant come in and run those numbers. So we wanted this to come from those two documents and have you guys kind of prioritize those without that hanging over your head.
I ruined your whole plan. Yeah.
Okay, we are gonna move into the next phase if there's no other questions or comments. And I wanna make sure the commission feels comfortable to move forward, consider ranking these 10 options, right? Is there 10?
That's correct. Yeah.
10 options, before we move forward.
Can I add one thing? Even though you guys are ranking them, and we're not trying to reach a consensus where everyone has this, or the top ranking is the same, we all want X, Y, and Z, it'll play out, and Tracy will explain that in a second. But like Nemo explained, the projects that are lower on the list won't go away. I mean, they will still be in consideration. I think what we want to do is get those top projects and come back with more information, whether it be return on investment or cost and things like that, to give you a bit more information on those ones that you felt were, high priority.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, I think, even myself, as I was putting together my notes and my thoughts together for tonight, like, was really struggling with the ranking concept, like potentially putting us or moving us into this, resource politics, right? And equality versus equity. or, you know, a new shiny bright building versus improving what we have currently existing. And so I was a little hesitant. I feel a little bit better about it, but still struggling with having, you know, to potentially rank things. But just gonna do one last call out before I hand the mic over to Tracy. Nobody has any more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I knew it. Okay, I'm gonna open it. There you go.
So not to jump ahead, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this, but I know on agenda item 12, Elizabeth is going to speak, and I was wondering if that is going to address the meeting that you had with the tennis and pickleball people, because I'd actually like to know a little bit about that before ranking parks. They've put a lot into this, and I'd like to consider that while looking at some of these projects too. Are we allowed to kind of get an update on that and jump ahead, or?
I don't think we can move to that agenda item since the
Okay.
agenda was approved by the commission at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
But you can open it back up if someone else wants to speak on that meeting. I think we probably had some folks at that meeting with Nemo and
Commissioner
Elizabeth.
Shea, I was at that meeting, so
Yeah.
you're welcome to ask me anything you want. And Elizabeth was also at that meeting. She coordinated that meeting, so she's also available to answer
Okay.
any questions you may have.
Well, I
But-
was just wondering, you know, just in the grand scheme of things, you know, what was kind of tossed around by the city and the different associations? Are there plans outside of what we're looking at to increase access for these people? And then, you know, or is that something that we can consider here to kind of help bridge that gap that they're looking at in access?
Sure, I can elaborate a little bit on that. So no plans were made at that meeting. Essentially, what it was intended to do was bring these two groups together and articulate some tangible wants and needs for each respective group. And the reason that that's needed is because we don't have a level of service for pickleball. We don't even have a designated facility for that. So their needs are obviously different than the tennis needs, right? We do have a level of service for tennis that we're exceeding. So that doesn't mean that we can't accommodate both groups, but their needs are different. And unfortunately, the temporary measures that we have for pickleball are to stripe tennis courts. And so just establishing that there are some concessions up front, but that we're hoping to move in the correct direction for both of the groups, which includes designated pickleball courts, 4 of which will be constructed this year. I believe Hugh is managing that project, and next year, so 2023, and additional pickleball courts, designated pickleball courts, making it onto some of our revised master plans like Nelson. So we are moving in the right direction. It's just a matter of communicating that to them so that they understand that it is coming. It is helpful for them to come to these meetings, for us to meet separately where we're dialoguing and everyone understands sort of the direction that we're moving. And then the other thing that we discussed was setting both short-term goals and long-term goals, right? Unfortunately, it's not a straight line. It's always a series of advances or retreats. So sometimes if we don't communicate, it might seem that one group is missing out on something or they're having to concede more than the other. So just having them dialogue is beneficial and sort of get on the same page, because actually they were pretty collaborative and decided that, hey, we want our hub to be here. And the other group said, we want our hub to be here. And everyone's working together. This is just a means to sort of touch base and to continue to dialogue about, again, short-term needs and long-term. Short-term being, you know, providing windscreen or having some sort of storage facility for nets so that the pickleball folks don't have to travel with them every single time they want to play, right? So those are short-term tangible goals. Long-term are accommodating some pickleball courts into our park system.
So ideally, as these projects that we're ranking tonight start coming back to us, that can also be something that we continue to advocate for when we're going over the park plans and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for jumping ahead, guys.
Vice Chair Thompson.
I'm sorry for, I just had a
Don't
quick
apologize,
point of
everybody.
clarification on the Graham Aquatic Center. It says an expansion to a 50-meter pool. It's currently a 25-meter pool. Is that correct?
That's
So
correct.
it's essentially a doubling of length, and that may or may not, if it's done correctly, it will also double the capacity. It's been a while since I swam over there, but I just wanted to get clarification on that.
I actually don't know the size of the existing facility. Elizabeth, do you know the size of that pool?
The competition pool is currently at 25.
25-meter pool.
So it would be doubling the size. And it would be the only pool of that size in this area.
That I am aware of. That clarifies it. I mean, the question, it becomes a more detailed question is if you go to 50 meters, can you then go sideways and go 25 meters and use, twice as many lanes and then also have the ability to do 50-meter lanes as a swimmer? These become questions that of access and use and how many swimmers can you accommodate in a single day type of thing.
Sure.
That's probably a detail too. I just wanted a clarification. We were expanding from 25 meters to 50 meters.
We are. It is a hypothetical. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to turn it in the opposite direction and go more lanes for 25. But again, that's a sort of a programming issue more than a development issue.
I think if we get into the weeds a little bit on design and concept, that's probably something that would be possible. The other thing that expanding the competition pool would do as well is give us more options to expand the diving program, which is getting pretty big.
It allows us to bring in swim meets and larger meets, things
Yep.
like that. Totally get it. Some pools are complex that I've swum at have a 50-meter pool, but they cut it sideways. It's 25 meters going the other direction. So for rec swim, you can get multi-use and get more swimmers, more lap swimmers. So,
There are definitely options for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, last call. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna kick it back to, Tracy and Nemo. I do, before we get into like the ranking, maybe can you also clarify, I know this may happen over a series of meetings, but in terms of information that's provided to council, I mean, obviously they can sit through and watch, our 2-hour meeting, and potentially our next 2-hour meeting. But like what specific information and maybe how is it gonna be presented to them? In terms of what Parks and Rec is recommending. And then I guess just a side note, just to not lose focus of the Measure M 3x3. I'm gonna be the broken record here, that even though we're doing this tonight and this activity, that I hope that council and the city manager are not losing sight of putting together the Measure M 3x3. I said Measure M, right? Not Measure A, Measure M. Measure M 3x3, and, making sure that we start to put Measure M dollars use. I know we are on the small wins, but, starting to strategize and prioritize those as well. So with that, give it to you, Tracy.
Just so that the public can also see the sheets that you guys have in front of you for how to rank. Oh, hello. Can you hear me now? Yes, so just so that the public can see the sheets that you guys have in front of you for how to rank. This is what you have in front of you. And so commissioners, please rank it. Your highest one will receive the score of 10. So just all your votes go to your top priority so that when it gets ranked, it will be the highest project, the highest score will be the number one. So this is what you have in front of you. And then when we are done inputting it, this graph, there will be a graphic here that will show the scores and how it panned out. Okay?
That's why we gave you the pencil, Berman.
Yes, you have the pencil.
Okay, so highest priority, 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Please do not duplicate numbers. So usually 10 to 1 one time.
We're gonna give folks time. Council Borba, do you think we could do a 5-minute bio break now while Tracy does the inputting of the scores? Okay, I'd like to give us a quick 5-minute recess break, so that way Tracy can put scores. We'll recess for 5 minutes? Yep, okay. There we go. All right, well, we are now returning from our, I think, a 5-minute recess, may have been a few minutes longer. Who should I kick it off to? Director Hubbard or?
Sure, you can kick it off to me, and I appreciate the discussion. And the way this will work is we can take the top, as it reads on the screen, it looks like the Davis Street procurement, Nelson Park, multipurpose rec center, and the sports field complex are the top 4 based on the commission's rankings. And talking to Nemo prior to the meeting, we were thinking that we would take the top 3 to 5 projects and bring them back next meeting and give you guys a little more detailed information on those projects. And so if we go to 5, that would include the trailhead projects, the trail project as well, which makes sense because that was almost the top one related to the community feedback and the needs assessment and the Park and Rec master plan. So what we would like to do is take these top projects, these top 5 projects, do a little more research and analysis on these projects, bring them back and present them to the commission at your next meeting and have further discussion on how we want to present these projects to the commission. And we work with the city attorney to see how we would, word how you guys would make a recommendation to the council on these projects. Did you want to add anything, Nemo?
I did. I just want to piggyback on what Director Hubbard said and something that I said sort of at the beginning of the presentation is, in addition to the list of projects, if you guys have any sort of explicit requests. So one of the things that I've noted on my notes is, do we have any return on investment information on any of these projects? But if there's any other explicit information that you guys want to see brought back to you, I would say that this is the appropriate time to sort of make that request so that I'm not playing a guessing game or bringing something back that isn't furthering the conversation, I would say.
And one final comment. I know we went back and forth on why we chose these projects. And then I heard a lot of back and forth on some of the smaller parks in town. And the reason why we took these projects, most of these projects would be over $10 million, right? Some of the smaller items that you guys mentioned at some of the smaller parks are usually maintenance issues that Public Works have on their schedule to take care of. Now, because, every, I think 4 or 5 years, no, probably every 5-10 years, they replace play equipment, benches, and things like that. And as things wear out, they replace them even more frequently. So some of those things are already being taken care of, and we didn't want to duplicate some of the work that they're doing. And that's why we didn't include some of those smaller parks on here. We will continue to do that with Measure M funds. The council has been very generous with their district dollars and making improvements to some of the parks. So we'll continue, making improvements to some of those parks, those neighborhood parks. But we wanted these projects that were over $10 million to be the focus of this particular exercise. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Are there any commissioner questions about the next step? Any additional information you want to hear or give back?
Procurement
Yeah.
and what that lease looks like in the agreement, since it looks like we haven't had those discussions in a while with them.
Well, I don't know that we'll have those discussions, that'll be up to Director Hubbard to sort of further those conversations, but
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have those discussions with that group prior to your next meeting, but what we can do is take a look at the agreement and give you some more information on what it looks like after the agreement is, I won't say dissolved, but at the end of the term of the agreement, and what our options, our specific options related to that, in addition to maybe some specifics on the costs for, it wouldn't be tight costs, but we can give some estimates on like a new roof or what it would cost to put new flooring in over in the port side. So, but as Nemo was saying, if you guys want specific information or want us to come back with specifics, you can make those asks right now too. But those are kind of our ideas.
Yeah, I think whatever details we can get about the lease agreement with Davis Street that we can get within the time frame would be helpful.
I'm wondering if we can potentially include the trail and trailhead improvements in further discussions, because there is such a small like margin between, you know, the sports field complex and the trail and trailhead improvement. And, you know, just based on your shovels, you know, it's more minor in terms of construction costs and maintenance. And I know personally, I'd like to see how that looks, I guess, across town in a larger scheme of trails. Go ahead. Commissioner Shea.
I think just getting, you know, so can we, I mean, I know we're not to the point yet of, you know, park plans, but just a generalized idea of, you know, I know we had like a minor list of like, this is what we're thinking about putting in the park, but just building that out a little bit, short of actually, you know, us expecting you to present park plans at the next meeting, right? Just like a better idea of like what would be added to the existing parks. Like I'm specifically thinking of like Nelson Park. And then you already mentioned like what would be next steps for Davis Street in the eventuality, right? That we would just be doing improvements. And then, yeah, I'd like to more information about what trailhead improvements means. And like, would we expand any trailhead network at all, like with existing trails, or are we just talking about like beautifying or, you know, just making them more accessible and things like that? So just more specific information along those lines. And I think that's it.
Giving you the right notes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And then I think too, you know, I think just looking at the numbers is helpful. And, you know, for myself personally, I rank the Davis Street procurement really low. And so I think in my mind, like what I would like to know when you do bring more information back to us, in my mind, if we lose it altogether in 2025, what is the plan for Parks and Rec to manage those programs and next steps? Because to me, then that list totally shuffles, right? I mean, in my mind, I start thinking about how do you use Three Oaks to maybe readjust programming back over there? I don't know, like, do you totally renovate that and put gymnastics in there? So I think I would probably want to know, I mean, 2 years is really not that far away. We're in 2023, like in the blink of an eye. And your negotiations with that contract could take 2 years. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but it seems like things like that take a really long time. And so I would really want to know when you come back to us, like, what if in 2025, we don't even have Davis Street as an option? And yeah. Other questions or comments before we? Well, thank you so much, Nemo. This, you know, talking about it pre-meeting it's a lot more, not as tangible. So this is much more helpful to see it all come to fruition, and really appreciate your time and energy in this presentation. And yeah, thank you to the commission for all of your work too, and thinking very critically about how you're going to rank things. So
Thank you.
where are, so I think we are on agenda item number 10A, committee reports. So moving on to Commissioner Shea and her update on Play for All Committee.
So we had the grand opening for Play for All Park this past Saturday. It was a beautiful day. Most of us were in attendance. A lot of city staff were there. A gorgeous day, a gorgeous park. The attendance was fantastic. There were, I mean, there had to have been upwards of 200 people at least I'm really bad at that, counting heads at events, right? Everybody's moving around, but there had to be more, over 200. Just a beautiful day. The park itself is gorgeous. There are a few things that need to wrap up before the city takes ownership of the park and phase 1 is officially completed. But although we have had the grand opening, just a good reminder to the community that it's just phase 1 and that Play for All is a completely community funded park. And funded all by donations and volunteer efforts. So as the Play for All committee moves into phase 2 and building out that part of the park, that will still be a need within the community is funding and volunteerism and all of that good stuff. So keep Play for All in the forefront of our minds as they move toward the next phases of development. But it was a really beautiful day, and I'm excited for the rest of the community to get to see the park. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Day? All right, thank you so much. And it sounds like other folks were able to attend too, so sounds like it was a great opening. I saw the photos. Let's see, moving on to 10B, Arts Advisory Committee, Commissioner Gutierrez, gonna give us an update on that.
Yeah, so we had the Arts Advisory Committee meeting on the 12th and had a really nice presentation by Eagle Scout Sarah Rothstein, who's also a student at Buckingham. She did a presentation about the painting project of the utility box at Andrews Park. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, it's amazing. She had about 8 different options that she presented to the committee of different types of designs, all designed by students at Buckingham, and the committee voted on them. It wasn't unanimous at first, but they were able to come to an agreement, and I love what they ultimately decided on, which was the image of the sunflowers on the utility box. It was painted on the 22nd and 23rd. It was approved by City Council, and looks like there may be some other designs and possibly other locations in the future. It looks like this one was a really successful event. A lot of great comments I've been reading on Facebook, and the reporter did a story on it. So it's really nice to see art kind of being established in all these different locations throughout Vacaville. They were also able, so the committee also selected a vice chair. So Ryan Bates was selected as vice chair. They selected some committee members for the Creek-Walk band selection. That was Brooke Fox. They selected a committee member to serve on the Public Art Maintenance Committee. That was committee member Colleen and Ryan selected for those. And then Colleen and Ryan were also selected for to purchase a piece of art from the Vacaville Art League show and add it to the public art collection. They have up to $5,000 to spend on that. So they will be getting together to do that as well. And yep, that was our meeting on the 12th.
Any
Oh,
questions? Oh, go ahead.
one more. Oh, that's okay.
Oh. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Just one
Accurate.
correction to the maintenance committee. It is just committee member Fox and Bates who are on that.
Oh,
Just for the
thank you.
record.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Gutierrez? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Gutierrez, for that update. So now we'll move on to 11A, reports of the park planner. We'll kick it back to Nemo for more updates on the
Man of the
Good evening. Long time no talk. I've got just a few updates for you all. The first being North Village. That project was brought to the council on October 25th. And the addendums were kicked back to staff and the developer for further discussions. Councilmember Silva did make a request for revisiting the park and adding a wow factor. So those discussions are imminent. For Dreamers Park, the park has previously been open, and the contractor recently installed temporary fencing to help him better control the site until it's ready to be accepted by the city, the contractor had to open a trench for a water line. And in addition to that, there are some no-mow grasses that needed to be established. They were installed and then they sort of failed. And in order to sort of keep those alive during their contracted maintenance agreement, they went ahead and closed that fencing. And that is a response to your question last week, which has already kind of been addressed, but those are the specifics regarding the actual work that was occurring there. Lagoon Valley Park, the North Pass Trail paving project will begin November 4th. The North Pass Trail will be reopening Monday, November 7th. And then Centennial Park, just a quick reminder, got a flyer. Well, our park planner, Hugh Hesterman, along with our consultant, will be hosting a meeting to share the draft master plan Saturday, December 3rd at 9:30 at our Ulatis Center, and a virtual meeting covering the same topic December 7th via Zoom. That concludes my report.
Any commissioner questions or comments for? Okay. Thank you, Nemo. Again, for your second presentation of the night.
Thank you all.
So moving on to agenda item 12, reports of Recreation Manager Elizabeth Crisante.
All right, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. I'm going to do some report outs on just some upcoming programs and projects we have. Tracy, next slide, please. So we have a few holiday events coming up. Later this month, we're having the annual Thanksgiving dinner, which is actually a lunch at McBride Senior Center, starting at noon. This program has been happening for years, and it's a really lovely way for many of our older adult population to get together and experience the holiday spirit without being alone. So kind of getting them out of isolation and getting into the holiday cheer. It is actually a free event, and it is for all ages, so we definitely encourage families to come. And this event would not happen without an army of volunteers. So if anyone here is interested in volunteering, please reach out to Tracy. We are trying to get organized for the day and assign tasks and shifts and make sure that everybody has something to do. So we're pretty excited that we're going to be back in full force this year hosting this event after COVID. Next slide, please. And then getting into the, Christmas spirit, holiday spirit. Neighborhood Santa is a relatively new program that kind of started during COVID. It was a way for us to reach out to some of the communities that we don't always get to program at, or folks who can't always come to our events. And it's been overwhelmingly successful. So it's going to be bigger this year. We'll have Santa on parade with a number of other city departments represented, fire, PD, et cetera. So you can actually track Santa's whereabouts on the city website on the events page. So stay tuned and see if he's coming to a neighborhood near you. That'll be happening the week of December 12th. Through Friday the 16th. Then we have the Polar Bear Plunge, which will be happening at the Walter Graham Aquatic Center. This is actually the second year we'll be hosting it. We tried it last year, and we didn't make it in. It didn't make it into our events guide. So unfortunately, we didn't meet the minimum number of folks to host it. So we're really hoping that it'll be able to go this year. It's an event that a lot of other agencies have done, and I've been a part of, and it's really great. We're asking everyone to dress up in a costume, so we'll have a prize for the best costume. And it's actually a really fun way to kind of close out your year and start your new one. So set some intentions, and part of the reason why we do it is a cold plunge in the middle of winter. So we're excited for that. That'll be on the 29th of December. Next slide. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tracy. So projects in the works, and actually Commissioner Gutierrez just talked about this, but the utility box art project, there's a fantastic picture of the completed project out at Andrews Park. So thank you for sharing that, Commissioner Gutierrez. That was very exciting to get that one kicked off. Just a few projects we have that are in the works, as I mentioned, mostly CIP funding. We're looking at purchasing a new boxing ring for Georgie Duke Center. We did a renovation of the boxing room during COVID, and the last piece is the boxing ring. So we're pretty excited for this. And then we're also looking at purchasing a new stage for Ulatis, just to get a more upgraded model of the one that we do have. And then as well as a sound system for Ulatis. And that's just really kind of upgrading the tech and making sure that we're kind of more modernized with all of the things that we can offer to the rentals that come through there. Public Works is currently working on Three Oaks kitchen floor replacement and cabinet replacement. I don't know if any of you have been over to Three Oaks Kitchen recently, but we are definitely in need of some aesthetic improvements over there. So this will be kind of exciting for us. These projects are all in the stage of staff are getting quotes and researching vendors. So they are all expected to be completed within the next few months. So that's pretty exciting. Tracy, next slide. And then we kind of touched on this earlier, but also wanted to just reiterate that we did have a meeting between the tennis folks and our pickleball folks. And Nemo and I were there. And so we are really looking forward to keeping that conversation open and continuing. And then we are talking about some kind of more of the short-term things that we might be able to tackle to help facilitate just getting a more of a home base set for pickleball since they don't currently have anything. And we're actually meeting with one of the pickleball players next week to talk about starting some potential contractual programs, which will be really excited because that's been a goal of ours for a long time. So we're really excited. We're really excited for that, guys. So any questions or comments? All right. Thank you.
I have one comment. I know tonight is the Dia de los Muertos event, and it's really sad that it's happening tonight during our commission meeting. And I think when the updates were brought, I think at the last meeting, I didn't make the connection at the time. And I wish I had and maybe suggested changing tonight's meeting. It would have been nice to have attended. I think not just for myself, but I'm sure for the entire commission. You know, as someone who is of Mexican and indigenous descent, it would have been really nice to be there, especially it being the inaugural event. And hopefully it's happening every year moving forward. And traditionally it falls on November 1 and November 2nd. So you'll have to kind of keep an eye on that for future commission meetings and future years. And maybe if there is an option to move the commission meeting, that would be great, especially I mean, I think and probably hoping that it stays a community event and grows and expands. You know, and hoping that it stays a communal event and not something that is commodified as it has been in the last probably 10 years. And so, yeah, I'm just really, and also thankful to the staff for putting it together, the team putting it together. I think some community members came forward and Council Member Silva has been really involved in it. So, just really thankful for the opportunity to have that in Vacaville. So
it's very exciting that it's happening. Unfortunately, tonight, I also was planning to go and then realized, nope, going to be at the commission meeting. So talked to staff earlier this week and even already figuring out for next year. So we're already looking at having this be a repeat event, but even looking at maybe how we can have it be a win-win for everybody and not have it fall on a commission meeting.
Absolutely. And having grown up in Vacaville, I never would have thought that this would have been an event that the city or the community would have come together.
So exciting.
It's really exciting. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so moving on to item 13, reports of the director, Director Hubbard.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. Just a couple quick items. The first is, along with my promotion, we were able to promote Elizabeth Versante to Recreation Manager, as you can see on the agenda. So I'm excited about that. And she's just like me, she was doing an interim for a couple of times, and she's done a really great job and shown great leadership in the position. So we were able to promote her. So I'm excited about that. Along with that, of course, behind her now we're short-staffed. So all day tomorrow we will be sitting in interviews trying to replace some of those positions. And so Tracy's been great at setting that up and getting us panels to interview the folks for tomorrow. The Centennial Park meeting was mentioned earlier, and what we need to do to make sure that we don't have a quorum, if you want to attend, you probably want to call Tracy ahead of time. So it's going to be a first come, first serve. I know Commission Chair said she wanted to attend. So there's two opportunities. One, the in-person meeting on the 2nd, and then the other meeting is on the 7th or 3rd. I'm sorry, on the 3rd, and then the 7th. So you have two opportunities, one in person, one virtually, but we just want to make sure we don't violate any Brown Rule Act. So just make sure you check in with Tracy on if you want to attend. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the commission for the discussion this evening. I think it was great. I think it's been a long time coming. Thanks to all the commissioners who are part of the process of going through the master plan, the Park and Rec master plan, and getting that created and getting it approved, but then getting the action plan and getting these projects prioritized. And it's not easy. I mean, all projects are important, right? And we want to be representative of the city. I want to make sure everyone's voice is heard. So it's not easy to come up here and prioritize those projects, but I want to say good job tonight, and we appreciate what you guys do. So thank you. And I can answer any questions.
Just congratulations again to both of you. So, yeah, deserves a round of applause. Okay, so moving on to item 14, reports of the commission. So we've got a couple of committees that need some appointments. So Tracy provided us before the meeting just the description of those committees, so that way you all can look on or check that out to see if you want to volunteer for that. So item A is select one commissioner to serve on the 2023 Vacaville Performing Arts Theater Season of Shows Committee. We have a volunteer for VPAT. Commissioner Oz.
I'd certainly like to put my name forward to either one of the.
Okay. Commissioner McMahon. Open. Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to volunteer again. I don't want to take anything away from anybody. I've had the opportunity to do it for the last 2 years, and it's fun. It doesn't take a lot of time as a commissioner. Obviously, during COVID, I think every meeting was via Zoom. So if there's nobody else, I'm absolutely volunteer for that.
Okay, we got Oz on the table, and Ann McMahon is maybe a backup. Can I get a motion for this item? We have to take a vote, correct? Roll call vote, at least.
Actually, sorry, Reggie, the committee appointments can just be made by the chair, but kind of as a practice, the chair has been getting consensus of the commission. So however you choose to do that is up to you.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and take then Oz's volunteer for VPAT. And all those in favor?
Yes,
All
yes.
those in
Yes,
favor? Sorry. Okay, and then, so then for item B, 2 commissioners to serve on Creek Walk band selection. So I've got Gutierrez here. And, oh, go ahead.
Oh,
I opened your mic, sorry.
I was just throwing my name in the hat for that, but I am totally open. I did it last year. It's really, really fun. So I'd love to do it again, but I know since I did it last year, I will totally step back if there are 2 others that want it. But I'd love to do it again.
Okay, and I have Commissioner Shea.
Yes, I would like to throw my name in the ring for that one as well.
And, no?
Come on, you don't want to do that?
I'm not fine.
Okay, and then, okay, so then we will, let's see, go ahead and move to appoint Commissioner Gutierrez and Shea to the Creek Walk Season Performer Selection Committee. Those in favor? Okay. Okay, so then thank you all for that, and thank you all for volunteering. So then moving on to reports of the commission, Commissioner Oz.
Well, first, again, I don't think we can say it enough. Congratulations to Reggie and Elizabeth on your new promotions. It's great to see promotions from within. And Reggie, the experience that you bring being with the city since '94, and then now with the Recreation Department since, was it 2003? That's fantastic. So, whatever we can do to support you, please always feel free to reach out. I did have the pleasure of attending the Play for All Parks ribbon cutting ceremony, and just a lot of attendance and very exciting. And I was able to get there early and watch the kids at play, and that was the best part. I'm looking forward to phase 2 and seeing that completely built out. And then I also had the pleasure of serving as a judge at the Halloween event, and very, very impressed. It was my first Halloween event. I served as a judge, and what was those are the type of events that I think really gives a community a sense of community, those type of events. So I really support those, and you could just see just a lot of families coming out together, dressing up in their costumes, having a lot of fun, socializing. And so those are the events that are, I'm sure, I'm going to say easily put together, but I'm sure there's a lot of work behind it. Kristen and Melody, I know you had a lot of efforts, so great job on that event.
Commissioner Verumen.
Well, just sure tell off Commissioner Oz, congratulations to Reggie and Elizabeth, long time coming. You're like no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here until I retire. But anyways, it's great to be you being the director now. And then I also was at the Play for All Park, and I'm also part of the committee. And it's been a long time coming because I was also what Commissioner Shea's doing, being a representative. And it's really good to come to see, and just watching Tom Felipe, you know, he came to tears because it worked so hard for the last, and for finally coming to life and watching all. Just want to say happy holidays. We're going dark in December, right? So happy holidays to everybody. Have a safe holiday, turkey, Christmas, and we'll see you in 2023.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Verumen. Commissioner Gutierrez.
Again, congratulations. It'll be super exciting we've already been working with you, but changes in leadership are always, fun with different ideas and different just shifts and synergy. So really excited to continue to work with you guys. And I unfortunately am probably the only person that was unable to attend Play for All Park and the Halloween event. I was camping, but well covered, represented. Thank you for the feedback, Commissioner Shea, on that. I feel like I was there, even though I wasn't. I was able to attend on October 27th, the Rocktober Fest for the Seroptimus group at the Ulatis Center. I was so glad to hear you mention about the new stage and sound system, which was fine with the band that they had there, but it is a little outdated. So just thinking about, revenue generating places, if we could, as much kind of modern technology we can infuse in some of these centers, so we can really have them be the places where people want to have, you know, events and weddings and birthday parties and things like that. I think that's going to help pay for itself in the end. So that was really nice to hear. It was a good event, but yeah, I was just looking around and felt like, yeah, things were a little outdated there. I feel like I need to walk around with now hiring flyers because they did have the abandoned kids there helping with cleanup. And I was talking to them about, you know, hey, are you looking for a job in Parks and Rec? And yeah, I didn't have flyers or anything. So if we ever get flyers that we can pass out at some of these events, I would love to take on that and pass out flyers just to make sure that people are aware that we're hiring. And, you know, young people don't always know that there are other options outside of fast food. Not saying anything's wrong with that, but there are other things that they can do also as far as work. I was also able to attend one of the committee calls for Solano Land Trust, and Melody was on the call as well. So it's really nice to continue to partner with some of our other community partnerships and be able to share what we're doing and also hear about other community events that are going on, not only in Vacaville, but throughout Solano County as well. And Ralph, thanks for the reminder. I guess we'll be seeing you guys all in 2023. That's all for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Gutierrez. Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I have to say congratulations to our two friends down there. It's always refreshing to see good people recognized within the organization and be promoted. And we have two of the very best sitting right there. So thank you for all you've done and thank you for all you're going to do here in the upcoming years. Really appreciate it. I also was at the Play for All. It was well attended, just a beautiful, beautiful park. It's a destination park for Vacaville. You know, Tom Filippi had a vision about 10 years ago, and he put a team together, and he sat here through many commission meetings, and it's been a long process, and you could just hear the emotion in his voice that morning. So it was very just exciting for this town, and I drive by there nearly every day, and it was interesting because the workers were out there today, and I saw families out there, and I don't think they quite knew that it wasn't ready to be played at yet, but it's in the very near future. So, Mr. Filippi, thank you so much, and to your whole team, thank you very much from all of us and Vacaville. We really appreciate it, and that park is going to be well played at and well visited by people from all over the community and the surrounding areas. And just thank you to all the commissioners. And again, have a very safe and happy holiday season, and we will see you in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner Shea. Oh, sorry, are you?
Yeah, that's
There you go.
I'm just reiterating what's been said. Congratulations to Reggie and Elizabeth. I'm really excited to work with you and just, yeah, the new energy, the new vibe in positions. It's going to be exciting to have that movement and excited to see who comes in behind you, who can fill those roles, right? Thank you so much, Nemo. I know how it is to give such extended presentations. Your brain is probably a little mushy afterwards, and you deserve to have a nice relaxing beverage when you go home. We appreciate your time and the organization that you put into the presentation. It was fantastic. And just thanks to everybody here. We knew it was going to be a long meeting because we got off easy with the last one. So, you know, thanks for everybody making it seamless tonight, and happy holidays to everybody, and have a wonderful break and time with your family.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea. I think Nemo's brain is probably more mushy after the 6-hour council meetings with no breaks, no bio break at the 2-hour mark. So I don't have as many updates as y'all. We were really busy this last month. What? Did I forget? Oh, Vice Chair Thompson. Vice Chair Thompson, there you go. No.
Congratulations, Elizabeth. Congratulations, Reggie. Well-deserved, great job. And that's really it. Happy holidays to the rest of the commission. Happy holidays to staff, and we'll see everyone in 2023. Thank you, Mary.
Sorry about that. And I even have a list right here in front of me. So yeah, you could have nudged me. Yeah, I don't have as many updates as everybody else. We were pretty busy in October with all the kids' sports stuff. But I am excited to see all the new art around town. So the electrical box is really, really cute, and just excited to see that pop up. And also in the same week, if you haven't been downtown at the old Vacaville Vacaville Barbers building, there is a mural that City Council member Silva, District Dollars, and City Council member Jason Roberts coordinated. Is one of the murals 50 around the state. Sorry, I'm mangling the title. But you know, this muralist came to town and did the mural. And so if you have a chance, it's the alleyway between Main Street and Elizabeth. Just drive down. It's really, really cute. So nice to see art popping up in Vacaville, and seeing some of the district dollars put to use, and just great. So yeah, we are convening until 2023. So I hope everybody has a really great holiday season. I had a lot of fun this last Halloween, and looking forward to the holidays with family. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your 2022. And with that, we will adjourn to the regular meeting until Wednesday, January 4th, 2020. Thanks, everyone.